Restarting. Today on Locked On Red Wings, is Jim Montgomery the answer for the Red Wings behind the bench?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, while I am the color commentator for Oakland University ACHA D1 men's hockey, and I will also be filling in as the play-by-play voice for the Motor City Rockers on Saturday, so come check them out at Big Boy Arena. Scotty, fun, is fun the right word? I think it's a fun topic to kind of explore. Obviously, Jim Montgomery was fired as the head coach of the Boston Bruins back on Tuesday, apologies. And we here in Red Wings land have had a ton of conversations regarding whether or not it's time to move on from Derek Lalonde. You know, you and I, Scotty, are in lockstep that it's probably time. His fault or not, it's probably just the right decision to get a new voice in the locker room. And we talked about that on both Monday and Tuesday's episodes. If you want to hear our thoughts on that, you can go there. So the question then becomes, is Jim Montgomery the answer? He's now a free agent head coach, fairly high profile, coming from the Boston Bruins, had head coaching experience with the Dallas Stars. So is that the guy? And before I let you answer, Scotty, I got to let the people know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I don't want to forget. Sometimes I get too into it and I forget that our nice, pleasant title sponsors. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with a $150 bonus in your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get that $150 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. Scotty, so go ahead and, Jim Montgomery, do you feel that this guy can be the answer for the Red Wings behind the bench?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So I think the way you worded it there is important. Like, can he be the answer? Yeah. I mean, of course he can be the answer. Had a lot of success, obviously not this season, but he very much could be the answer. But I also don't think that I think there's somewhat of a mindset out there that's just like, Bruins fired their head coach. Look at, what the Bruins have been. And this guy is the savior. Like, this guy is the one, and he's the guy that's just going to come in and fix everything. And this is the slam dunk, can't miss hire. And I'm not really sure that I'm in that camp either. I think, as you said at the beginning, a coaching change needs to happen. So if they end up going with Monty, then great. Like that's a guy that has proven himself before. It'll be a new voice in the locker room, as you said, and hopefully they can improve and turn this thing around. And we'll, if that were to happen, we would discuss it on the show and probably talk decently highly of it. But I also hesitate to be as aggressive as the part of the fan base that's just like this guy or bust. Like I'm not really sure I'm in line with that either. I think I'm more just in line for I'm more in the group of just like it has to be somebody new, and if it happens to be him, then I'm sure that would be fine.
Right, and Jim Montgomery, I think a big part of the reason that fans are so excited at the prospect of bringing him in after he got let go by the Boston Bruins is simply because he's not Derek Lalonde. I think that's the biggest thing, is it is a different voice, a different name, and it's a head coach who's had head coaching experience twice there before, including assistant coaching experience with the St. Louis Blues. And the teams that he has head coached were playoff teams. But I want people to pump the brakes, because one, while fans may be in agreement that it's time to move on from Derek Lalonde, including ourselves, that doesn't mean that that's what Yzerman is thinking. And, we can have a different conversation. We've had a conversation about that situation. Like, you're looking at a situation where Derek Lalonde, the Red Wings might feel it's in their best interest, if they feel this season is lost, to keep Derek Lalonde on board to try and just to ride out the season and get the highest draft pick they possibly can, where bringing in a new coach could potentially just have you sitting at the 15 mark again and still miss the playoffs. There's a conversation to be had about that, and they might not fire their head coach. But of course, we are in agreement they need to. But Jim Montgomery doesn't necessarily mean he is the answer. Like you said, he is an answer, but that doesn't mean he is the answer for the Detroit Red Wings. Because if you look at, and I asked Ian McLaren of Lockdown Bruins, I was like, hey, give me a rundown of how this guy coaches. Like, what's his, Lockdown Bruins, Original Six Hockey Club. Oh yeah, great show.
Genuinely though, that's one of the best shows we offer for sure.
And he told me he likes to play a quality over quantity style of hockey. And I was like, immediately I was like, oh, I just went on a whole tirade how I was anti-quality the other day. I was like, all right. And then he sent me a link to a New York Times athletic piece written, and I want to get the author's name to give credit. It was written by...
New York Times is also, their sports is now The Athletic as well.
Yeah, they own The Athletic. Right. So Fluto Shinzawa is the Bruins beat writer for The Athletic, and he wrote a piece on Jim Montgomery about the style of coaching that he has, and I'm going to break a lot of hearts. He has a very similar philosophy to what Derek Lalonde is. It's zone defense in the defensive zone, so you're going to try, your goal is to get rid of the high danger chances, and your forwards are going to collapse low into the high slot in order to help prevent those high danger chances, which is going to allow a lot of low danger opportunities. And then in the offensive zone, as Ian had told me, he focuses a lot more on driving quality chances rather than just throwing the puck at the net. And obviously, it's a great article by Shinzawa there with The Athletic. You guys should go dig it up and try to find it and read it because it's great insight. All I'm seeing and all I'm reading is this is going to be another guy who is going to try and implement not one for one the same style, but a very similar style to what we are already running here in Detroit, and we already see that's not working. That doesn't mean with a new voice it can't be implemented better, though. Just because it's a similar system doesn't mean there's not going to be slight differences in how it's run, and doesn't mean that a different coach can't get the message across in a more effective manner. And to Jim Montgomery's credit, when he has been head coach, his team's made the playoffs every single season. The 2018-2019 Dallas Stars lost in the second round. He got relieved 31 games into the season the next year, but his team at that point had a .600 win percentage. They were 17-11. I remember that being a shock when he was fired because the team was winning hockey games. Then he was the assistant coach for the St. Louis Blues, rather. I don't know why I said New York there. Before taking over the Boston Bruins as head coach back in 22-23, where they lost in the first round and lost in the second round. But remember, those were the years that first year where he was head coach of the Boston Bruins, they won 65 games. That was that historically good year for the Boston Bruins. They still didn't get it done in the playoffs, but you know what? You got to make it to the playoffs first, which is the Red Wings are trying to do. He did win the Jack Adams that year as well. So it's just one of those situations where there is a lot more head coaching success with those teams than, somebody like Derek Lalonde has had, because this is his first time doing it. But there is a huge asterisk when talking about his success, in quotes, with the Boston Bruins and the Dallas Stars. And Scotty, I'm going to hand it to you because I feel like you probably know where I'm going with this.
Well, I also think that it's there's a lot to dissect with that. And yes, obviously, we can talk about the yeah, we could talk about that for sure. But I think there are your point about bringing up your point about the system and how it's very similar to Lalonde. I'm sure that there's a large majority, maybe not majority, but large group of people that are just like, you know what, we want to get as far away from the system that we just had as possible. But they're also, if you're making a pros and cons list, there also is certainly an argument to be made for, they've been trying to run this system. It hasn't been working. They knew that they were going to run a similar system all summer. This is what they've been working for. Maybe a better coach that can implement and teach and, I don't know, create lines for, et cetera, like this system may end up helping too. It also could just be like this roster and the player personnel, which is back to an Iverson. Shout out Allen Iverson, man. Honestly, that's the dog.
We've both.
I got his jersey hanging in my closet back there. That's an Iserman thing, obviously. But so maybe it is just like this personnel can't play that style of hockey.
Right.
But then you get even more big picture, and you got to go like, okay, well, what style of hockey do you want this team to play? Like that, then. Right. Because if there's going to be a lot of roster turnover, then like, well, don't bring in a guy that is fit to just coach this specific roster. If long-term we don't want to be a style that accommodates this one or looks like last year or whatever. Like, I don't know. Like, as you can tell, my brain is going a million miles an hour, and there's a lot of different kind of twists and turns with this.
Yeah, and I mean, the big elephant in the room when talking about, his successes with Boston.
Sorry, yeah.
And no, you're good.
Completely went off on a tangent, didn't bring it up, but yes.
But those are all very good points that you still brought up. Like, it's all very important to say those things. And the elephant in the room with those rosters is they were way more talented. Like, the Dallas Stars and the Boston Bruins were playoff caliber rosters that he took over. So not to say he didn't have an effect,
a record-setting team.
Right. Like, they already
with Boston. They didn't even make the cup.
They had Vezina-winning goaltending in Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman, and they had two players on the Boston Bruins who could score 100-plus points in Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak. And I think that 2 years ago, when they had the record-setting year, was they still had Patrice Bergeron. Because I'm pretty sure last year was the first year they didn't have him. So, like, those were incredible teams, incredible rosters. And Dallas is no slouch either. You can still see Dallas has built up into a juggernaut, but even back then, like, they weren't bad rosters. They were still good rosters back then. So, like, I think it's presumptive to think that he could come in and fix the Red Wings when, like we've said, the Red Wings their problems are deeper than that. That being said, I do think he's a good head coach. Like, I think the reason he got fired by the Boston Bruins is kind of a similar reason why Derek Lalonde is going to get fired. Not that Derek Lalonde has seen success and he's getting scapegoated. Like, it's not working with him behind the bench, but the problems with the Bruins, just like with the Red Wings, run deeper than what coaching can fix. And so Montgomery may come in, run a similar system, and see a lot more success. But That doesn't mean this team's going to become a playoff contender. But that doesn't mean he's not. Again, it's just one of those situations where I'm not sold on his style because we've seen that style already and it hasn't worked, but that doesn't mean he can't do it better, and it doesn't mean he can't be the answer. Because at the end of the day, he has more experience and more success than Lalonde has had. For sure.
And I think people just immediately kind of go, really good team under his watch, fired. That's the answer. And I think the way you put it earlier was really good. Like, he is an answer, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily the answer long term. And but also, like, I'm not trying to be like negative toward it either. Like, he could be, like he could be. He certainly has a resume, as you just said, much better than the current guy behind the bench for the Wings. So, like, absolutely could be. It's just, I don't know. I'm kind of caught in between.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against it, but I'm not going, get him, he's the guy. Like, he's not the guy I'm biting, chomping at the bit to get. Scotty, we got to head to a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about how, despite the Red Wings, where they lie in the standings, this season is actually far from over. And we'll explain why in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Got to also talk to you guys today about Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite team play live even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and so much more. And the all-in pricing toggle allows you to see the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Just make sure you turn that toggle on to see all those costs. And the Gametime ticket coverage makes sure that you have the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, the Red Wings sit with 16 points on the season, 7-9-2 through 18 games. That is tied for worst in the conference in total points with the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Montreal Canadiens. And a lot of people are going to go, it's so over. And it very well may be. This team has not looked good, right? One of the worst 5-on-5 teams.
And you might be right.
One of the worst penalty kills, but also one of the best power plays. Yet, despite this early struggles as they approach the 20-game mark, season's far from over, and they're far from out of it. And you take a look, Scotty, at the standings. They are tied for bottom of the conference, yet they're only 3 points back of the second wild card.
That's crazy.
There is the parity in this conference right now is insane.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it. I don't know if that's healthy or not to grab onto that false hope. I don't know if that's a good thing or not to be like, hey, look, like we're kind of in it still. You know, it's not all that bad, because I don't want to just not address these problems. But I do think that may be why the front office hasn't been, I don't know, like as proactive as maybe some people. Like, genuinely, I was in the camp where it was like, if we lose to San Jose and Anaheim and then presumably LA, like he's going to be gone. Like Lalonde's going to be fired. And I guess he did get a point. I don't really think that matters too much, all things considered. No. But I'm somewhat surprised that he is still here. And I think that may be why. Just because, not like the sole reason. I'm sure there's a lot of reasons that go into it, but it really wouldn't shock me if one of the points was, you know, like, hey, they're not out of it, and a lot of teams are struggling right now, and a lot of teams are around that, you know, 500-ish hockey mark, and if they can just get hot and turn it around to some extent, they are right back in it. Like if right. They win their next 2 games, like they could be in the wild card spot. So like it's definitely weird, and I think that it may play somewhat of a factor just because we're still so early in the season.
Right. I would almost make an argument that that's why you should get rid of change of head coaching, because you aren't out of it yet.
Totally fair.
You still have an opportunity to salvage the season, but the point too here is like this conference is so split right down the middle. It's very top heavy and very bottom heavy with like nobody in the middle right now. You have 7 teams with 20 points or more. The gap between wild card 1 and the first place in the conference, Scotty, is 2 points. And part of that is the Metropolitan being so heavy, right? Like one of those 4 powerhouses gets bumped down to the wild card, and that's the New York Rangers in this instance. New York Rangers have 25 points. Capitals lead the conference right now with 27. Tampa Bay Lightning are third in the Atlantic with 21. So they trail a little bit. But the idea that your wild card 1 is trailing the team that's on pace to win the President's Trophy right now by 2 points is insane, especially when you realize that the bottom of the conference and wild card 2 are separated by 3 points. But the gap between wild card 1 and 2 is 6. The New York Islanders have 19 points. The New York Rangers have 25. There is a bigger gap between wild card 1 and 2 than there is between wild card 1 and top of the conference and wild card 2 and bottom of the conference. Like, it is split down the middle between bad and really good. And that's where the Red Wings sit right now, is they're in the bad category, but they're not out of it. You string together a couple wins, and you're right back in this thing. And again, I don't want to like fill people with hope right now. I don't want to fill them with copium, as they say, as the youth says, copium. But like it is a reality that a couple of good wins, and we've seen a couple of really strong 5-on-5 performances not go the Red Wings' way up until this West Coast road trip. I mean, actually, including the Anaheim Ducks game. Like, if these games just go the other way, if they can actually find a way to cut out those odd man rushes that result in goals and improve the penalty kill, like they're right back in this thing. Do I have faith that they will? No. But this season, because so many teams are struggling, like the New York Islanders in the second wildcard spot are 7 dudes. Islanders already, bro.
You just love the Islanders. I'm gonna get you an Islanders sweater for Christmas. You just love that team.
They've already gone to overtime 7 times this season, Scott.
Do you
realize that?
They've
played 19 games and they've already gone to overtime 7 times.
And you love that about them, don't you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did they go to? Because they have 5 overtime losses, and they have 4 regulation wins, so that's 9. Have they gone more than that? I might not have been able to do the math. Dude, that's insane. They've gone 7 or 8 times to overtime already. That's how they made the playoffs last year.
Look how much you love the Islanders.
They are hockey terrorists. Like,
I want every single person that has social media to just reply to Brian's post with pro Islanders propaganda.
They are the most boring team to watch. And we'll tell you why in segment 3.
Yeah, you want to preview? All right.
That was a pro transition. Proud of myself. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You can just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks has invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out of your lineup even if it's not perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks now offers Venmo for a quick and easy deposit and withdrawal into your account this sports season. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more for your lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 off your first $5 lineup. It is PrizePicks. Run your game. I almost read a spot you're not supposed to read. I caught myself. PrizePicks. Scotty, segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. The New York Islanders, man. I mean, I despise this team. I mean, I play it up a little bit. I just do find that they are like the most boring team in the NHL to watch play. We all know why. They play lockdown defense, and so you really don't get any. And the Red Wings already struggle to get offense, but they don't get a lot of offense themselves. So it's a game of just 2 teams doing nothing until somebody lets in a goal. And in fact, to that point, the New York Islanders and the Red Wings have already played a game this season, which the Red Wings won 1-0. And it was the most boring game of the season thus far, and that is saying something. That's how little. I think both teams barely crossed the 20 shot threshold in that hockey game. I'm not looking forward to playing this hockey team, Scotty. I'm just
really
looking forward to playing them.
Wow, I didn't get that impression. Yeah, man, like this is we know who the Islanders are. They are not having a great year this year, 7-7-5. But I mean, as we mentioned, there's a lot of teams that are kind of struggling so far. They are on a 2-game losing streak heading into this. The Wings obviously on a 3-game losing streak. Yeah, like they just really maximize the low event hockey type of thing. They are first in the NHL in fewest amount of PIMs a game. They do not allow shots. They're kind of middle of the pack so far this year in goals against, but I mean, obviously have some top end goaltending, and then shout out to my favorite stat. They are the best faceoff team in the entire NHL, which certainly helps when you're trying to play low event hockey and when you're in your defensive zone. Knowing on a kill or just on a scoring opportunity in general, even if it's even strength, just being able to win faceoffs in the defensive zone is a big part of what they do. So.
Scotty, I want you to try and guess how many shots the Red Wings had on Ilya Sorokin the last time these two teams played.
Well, was this the ridiculous one? Was this the one where it was like the fewest amount of shots in a win that the Wings have had in like 50 years or something ridiculous? Wasn't it like 12?
You're really close. They had 11 shots and
yeah,
won 1-0.
Dude. I was gonna say because that was the game where it was like they had single-digit shots after the second and were winning.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is happening? And then, I think that was it was some sort of literally like 40 or 50 years was the last time that the Wings had that few of shots in a win.
Kind of almost an embarrassing stat. That's bad. That's not a good stat to have read to you, even though you won.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that's middle of the pack. Corsi 4 percentage, expected goals for percentage, actual shot share at 5-on-5. They're just middling at best. Still better than the Red Wings in the 5-on-5 categories, that's for sure. But their penalty kill and their power play is one of the worst in the league. Their penalty kill currently is listed at 31st. So you would expect the Red Wings power play, which is third best in the league, to feast against this if you can get them to draw penalties. But you have the worst penalty kill in the league. The Red Wings literally are 32 of 32 now at 66.7% on the season. But the Islanders, thankfully, also are 31st in power play. They have the 31st ranked power play and penalty kill. So you would hope this would be an opportunity for the Red Wings to maybe get out of the basement on the penalty kill. But again, I have zero faith. We know Alex Lyon is starting, so it's an opportunity of redemption against the team that he shut out last time he played against the Islanders. And I believe we have practice lines. And that doesn't mean these are the lines you're going to roll with, but there was definitely a shakeup at practice today, and I'll read you guys these lines off. Scotty, I want to get your reaction. I don't know if you've seen them or not, but I want to get your reaction of what these lines are. So your first line, Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond, Vladimir Tarasenko. Your second line is Marco Kasper, Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat. Third line, pretty standard shutdown line, Kopp, Fischer, Rasmussen. And your fourth line is Comfer, Berggren, and then Veleno and Mott were rotating. So it's going to be one of those two, I imagine.
I'm super down, to be honest. I'm all about it. Cat and Kane back together. That obviously found some
Kasper.
Success. Right. Obviously, Kasper being 2C again is a great sign. Trying to get Vlad going is going to be important if they want to turn this thing around. You're kind of divvying up the offense and defense too. Obviously, you still have the shutdown line, I guess, but and then that's a really solid fourth line. If we can get to a point where that actually matters, it's a really, really good fourth line. So I'm with it. I'm more just worried about the blue line still.
Those pairs didn't change, so that's why I didn't read them. So have fun with your league worst pairing in Sherratt and Petrie.
Yep.
Combined with your league best pairing in Simon Edvinsson and Moritz Seider. That's incredible. I still can't get over, you talk about one of the few highlights of the season, Simon Edvinsson and Moritz Seider at their age, especially with Edvinsson being effectively a rookie, being one of the best in the league at expected goals against percentage, expected goals percentage and expected goals against per 60 minutes, despite how they're utilized, is just really impressive. I think back and I'm like, if these players got more even deployments, they're your top pair. They're always going to get the toughest on the team, but more in line with what other top pairs get. If your bottom two pairs are a little bit more competent, how much better would that top pair even get? That's just, I think about that sometimes because they're already so good.
Absolutely.
But that's a tangent. I just like to, the Red Wings are so much more fun to watch when Edvinsson and Seider are out there bullying people.
Correct. Certainly when compared to the other options too, even more so.
But, Scotty, do you have anything else for the people?
I don't think so, man. We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow to recap the game against the New York Islanders. So stay tuned. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.